What's going on, Vikings fans? Welcome on in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking about what our good old friend Colin Cowherd had to say on J.J. McCarthy as he is doubling down on his take that this upcoming season for our Minnesota Vikings will not be successful because of that guy right there, number 9, J.J. McCarthy. Just another ludicrous quote from Cowherd. But we do have some jersey updates here. The Vikings are going to be rocking their Winter Warrior jerseys Week 17 on Christmas versus the Detroit Lions. Now, I'm assuming the Lions will be wearing their all-blacks in this matchup, just a rematch of the Week 18 game from this past season. Now, I have been saying for the past couple of months, I want the Vikes to get an all-black alternate. I think it would look sweet with an all-black helmet. We saw Isaiah Rodgers kind of flirt at that idea, posting an all-black helmet on his Instagram story recently. So maybe they have another jersey up their sleeves, but they also will be rocking their Vikings Classic throwback jerseys for the Week 2 home opener, Sunday Night Football. All eyes on Minnesota versus the Atlanta Falcons, so I love that call. And then also Week 18 versus the Green Bay Packers. Could that be for the NFC North? Could that be for a wild card spot? I'm assuming that game will have some major implications, but I like the decisions right here from the Vikings PR team. But let's just talk about what Cowherd had to say on J.J. McCarthy, because he is clearly not a fan of him. He doesn't believe in him, and for some reason, he just continues to double down on this take. It almost feels like he dug himself this hole, and he just has to keep on doubling and tripling down on this. But this is what he had to say on a podcast with Danny Parkins. He completely cut him off, and he just said this: J.J. McCarthy, you're going to see it very quickly, is not what people think. J.J. McCarthy is a C quarterback. Have you ever seen J.J. McCarthy's fourth quarter college stats and playing from behind? They are terrible. And I had to go with this meme from GTA. Shit, here we go again. Because every offseason, Cowherd's got something to say on this football team. He's never been a believer. And I think I have a couple of reasons why Cowherd is so down on the Vikings quarterback. But if you guys believe in him and you guys are a fan of J.J. McCarthy, like I know a lot of you guys are, we all saw that 60-yard bomb he threw to Jordan Addison yesterday at day 1 of Vikings training camp. That was enough juice to keep me going till week 1 of this season. But if you guys are a believer in J.J. McCarthy, hit that thumbs up icon and like today's show. All right, so I want to focus in here on this quote, and specifically the part where he says, have you ever seen J.J. McCarthy's fourth quarter college stats and playing from behind? They're terrible. That's just not true. It is the complete opposite, actually. Now, J.J. barely trailed in his college career. Yes, Michigan was a powerhouse, one of the best college football teams over the last couple of years with J.J. at the helm, but he had 28 games throughout 3 seasons he was trailing. He was 71 of 124, threw for 990 yards, had 10 touchdowns, 1 interception, and only one of those games resulted in a loss, and that was the TCU game where his offense dropped 45 points. Now, he also threw 2 pick sixes in that game, ended up losing 51-45, but I just don't get where he got this from. I know Greg Cosell hopped on a show a couple of years ago before the draft and said JJ's not a good quarterback from playing from behind, so I think that's why Cowherd is kind of just running with this take, but the real reason is this is all because the Vikings let his sweet prince Sam Darnold walk this offseason, because finally Darnold, he was in a good organization. He had a team that had a very solid support system. We know the weapons. We know Kevin O'Connell. I just think he's a little salty that they let his guy walk out the door instead of giving him, because the contract that he signed with the Seattle Seahawks, it's necessarily just a 1-year, $37 million deal. They could get out of that contract after the first year. So the Vikings had a chance to bring him back. And I just think Cowherd's a little salty that they decided not to. But you know what I thought was interesting? Because I swear I remember a quote from before the NFL draft in 2024 where Cowherd was talking about the Vikings potentially selecting a quarterback. And he said this: outside of Caleb Williams, who I think has a unique talent to thrive wherever he's drafted. I guess that wasn't really too true in his rookie year. But the second most successful quarterback in this draft will be whoever Kevin O'Connell of the Vikings lands. That's my official QB bet of the draft. So I just got to ask Cowherd, what changed? Like, why are you now so down on this quarterback when before the draft you were saying, I don't care if it's Michael Penix, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, whoever the Vikings take at pick number 11, that will be the second most successful quarterback. And I think it's just because he moved to Chicago. You know, he moved the studio there. He's moving his family there. He's living. He's, feeling all the buzz around the Chicago Bears. And we know the Bears offseason champs. This is their time to shine every single offseason as Bears fans. And I think Cowherd's just, becoming a victim to that. But the thing I can't wait for is to see how Colin Cowherd's going to walk this take back during the season. Because as we know, this Vikings team is incredibly stacked. You got one of the best coaching staffs. You got one of the best overall rosters in the NFL. And if they start winning games, I could see Colin Cowherd giving J.J. the Brock Purdy treatment. I think Brock Purdy is a top 12 quarterback in the league. I think he has been incredibly underrated. And, a lot of the success you chalk up to Purdy. It's, Kyle Shanahan. It's those weapons. That's going to be the same conversation we have about J.J. McCarthy. I promise you, we will get a quote from Cowherd in October, in November, where it's saying anybody could be successful with the Vikings. It's Kevin O'Connell. It's Justin Jefferson. It's Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson. Anybody can play quarterback there. Look at what Kirk Cousins did. Look at what Sam Darnold did. You can already see the takes coming to fruition. But this guy's not a believer in J.J. He's a Caleb Williams homer. He's a Bears homer. But you guys let me know who you got for week 1. Give me an MIN for the Minnesota Vikings. Give me a CHI for the Chicago Bears. I cannot wait for this week 1 matchup. Monday Night Football in J.J. McCarthy's hometown. Probably without Jordan Addison. Probably without Christian Darrisaw. If you could go get a huge divisional win in that matchup, it could really spark a magical season for the Vikes. But who you guys got in week 1? MIN for the Vikes or CHI for the Bears? Now, I kind of want to broaden this conversation and just try to debunk why the media is just so wrong about this Vikings team. Everybody is down on them. The Broncos are getting all types of love. The Bears are getting all types of love. The Packers are getting all types of love. So we'll try to figure that out here in a second. But before we do so, I got to tell you guys about a new product we have here at Vikings Now by Chat Sports, and that is Daily Greens by Factor Form. And if you guys head over to factor75.com/VikingsChat, you guys will get 40% off plus free shipping on your first order. Now, I have tried green supplements in the past, and I swore I was never going to try them again until I pivoted to Factor Form's Daily Greens. Now, most of us dread drinking greens, but Factor Form changed the game. You actually crave your greens. As a sister brand to Factor Meals, Factor Form was designed to work hand in hand with your meals, making better nutrition effortless. Daily Greens is a greens powder by Factor Form you look forward to drinking. Just one scoop delivers you 100% of your daily nutrients, filling nutrient gaps, supporting whole body health, and helping you feel your best. With a refreshing, citrusy, clean, and smooth taste that's actually enjoyable to drink, mix a single-serve pack in water, and you're good to go. And my favorite part about Daily Greens is that in a blind taste test, they rank number 1 in taste, texture, and aroma, beating out some of the biggest names in the industry. So if you guys want to start your day right with Daily Greens by Factor Form, head on over to factor75.com/VikingsChat to get 40% off plus free shipping on your first order. Take advantage of that deal. And again, that's factor75.com/VikingsChat for 40% off plus free shipping. Hit that link in the comments section and description of today's show, factor75.com/VikingsChat. All right, let's discuss it. Why the media outside of Minnesota is so down on the Minnesota Vikings. And, I don't know if this is just them just kind of brand bias where they see the logo on the helmet and they see the history of the franchise where they're always a very good football team. But the Vikings haven't been great. And that's still the same with the Kevin O'Connell era. You've been very, very good during the regular season. 13 wins, 14 wins. But you still don't have that playoff win. I think that's just causing people to have some blinders when evaluating this football team. But I think the Vikings, for a team that won 14 games this past season, I also think they're one of the most improved teams in the league. Look at their offseason additions. They're getting Christian Darrisaw back from injury. I think that is the biggest addition that any team will make this offseason. Is just Darrisaw, a top 5 left tackle, getting back in the fold and holding down that left side of the offensive line. But you added to the defensive line with Hargrave and Allen. Added to the interior of the O-line with Kelly and Fries. And you also added some depth at the secondary with Isaiah Rodgers. You spent your first-round pick on Donovan Jackson. Then you got my guy, Jordan Mason, who I think is one of the most underrated running backs in the league. Rushing yards over expected per carry. He was 3rd, only behind Saquon and Derrick Henry this past season. I think he's got some real juice. And, if you're making an argument for the Vikings, why they could be a regression team, you're probably saying, oh, they had a lot of key losses this year. Yes, you lost Sam Darnold, who had a monster year, 35 touchdowns, 4,000 yards, 14 wins. We also go through on that tape, Week 18 versus the Lions, that playoff game versus the Rams. He turned back into his own self. He finally went pumpkin mode, which, we thought we were avoiding that the whole season, but ended up not being the case. But, yes, you did lose Cameron Bynum. That is a decent loss for the Vikings secondary, but also I got faith in a guy like Theo Jackson stepping in and, filling in that role. You lost Stephon Gilmore, but he ended up having a pretty poor second half of the year. Shaq Griffin, then you obviously traded Ed Ingram, which is just an addition by subtraction, one of the worst guards in the league. And really the only argument you can make for a regression for this Vikings team is if you truly believe Sam Darnold is 6 wins better than J.J. McCarthy. Now, I don't even want to turn this into a McCarthy conversation. Let's just talk about Darnold. What were we saying about Darnold before last year? This is kind of a prove-it year. This is his last shot. We were saying even before the McCarthy injury, they were in a quarterback battle. If McCarthy doesn't get hurt, does Darnold even get a chance to play? So if people really believe that this team is going to take a regression, then you should be super high on the Seattle Seahawks. You should be saying the Seahawks could potentially go to the NFC Championship game and make a deep run in the playoffs. But I just think this comes down to Cowherd having this, love for Darnold that he's had since his USC days. Obviously, Cowherd's a USC homer, but I just think if you keep it simple here, make it make sense. I think the Vikings roster is undisputed. It's elite, and I think it's a top 10 roster, top to bottom in the whole league, even if you incorporate the quarterback position. And then the coaching staff, I put top 5. I wanted to put top 3, but even if we're just kind of playing the lower end of the spectrum here, you still got Brian Flores, you got Kevin O'Connell, you got Josh McCown. Those are 3 of the best coaches in the league. So you have an elite roster, you have an elite coaching staff. Why are people so down on the Vikings? And I think it's this. I think the Vikings and just people being down on them is because of the media wants teams like the Bears and the Packers to be more successful. It's a business in the NFL. If the Bears went on a deep playoff run, Fox Sports, their ratings, them covering the NFC, they would skyrocket. And even the same with the Green Bay Packers. You have that logo on the side of the helmet. I think they're more of a national brand than the Minnesota Vikings. They want them to be good. Hey, here at Chat Sports, if you ask my bosses, James Yoder, Brett Scott, if you had to pick the Bears or the Vikings going on a playoff run, they would all pick the Bears because the Bears are a bigger brand. They're a bigger market. And I think that bias is starting to slip into the minds of a lot of these media members. And they're just looking at this Vikings team saying, no way they can do it again. We weren't high on them last year. Think it's a little bit of a fugazi that they won 14 games. I just think it's a little ludicrous. And also this gets back to the pre-draft thoughts that people had on McCarthy because Cowherd wasn't high on him coming out. And now he's the starting quarterback for the Vikings. So he's saying, well, if a guy like J.J., who I wasn't high on, is filling in for a guy like Sam Darnold that I love, obviously he's not going to be huge on this Vikings team heading into the next season. It's just another offseason where the Vikings get disrespected. And I kind of like it. I kind of have fun doing these videos, just going back and forth with Cowherd. But I'll ask you guys this. Vegas has over-under for the Vikings at 9.5 wins. It was actually bumped from 8.5 to 9.5 recently. So you guys let me know. O for over, U for under. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. Also, hit me up on Twitter if you guys haven't already. Give me a follow over there. I'll give you guys a follow right on back. And we'll see you guys next time. As always, let's go Vikes.